Hello students, welcome back to IAS Express. Today we're embarking on a journey back to the year 1813, a pivotal moment in the history of British India, the introduction of the Charter Act. So grab your notebooks and let's unravel the story together. For years, the East India Company had a tight grip on trade from the Cape of Good Hope all the way to the Straits of Magellan. But with the Charter Act of 1813, all that changed. The Act ended the company's monopoly, opening up trade to other British merchants. However, there were a few exceptions. The tea trade, the opium trade, and trade with China remained under the company's control. Interesting, right? Another groundbreaking aspect of the Act was how it asserted the Crown's sovereignty over British India. This was a clear signal that the British government was starting to take a more direct role in the administration of India. But that's not all. The Act also allocated funds for educational and scientific improvements, showing a commitment to the development of India. Plus, it permitted Christian missionary activities, opening doors for cultural transformations. Now, let's take a step back and understand the historical background. Before 1813, the East India Company not only had a monopoly over trade, but also governed large parts of the Indian subcontinent. They had military power, performed administrative functions, and had a significant influence on the socio-political landscape. The Napoleonic Wars and the continental system from 1803 to 1815 also played a role. Napoleon's blockade was meant to weaken Britain, impacting its commerce. But Britain compensated by expanding its trade networks, especially in India, highlighting India's importance. There was also growing pressure from British merchants and the public to open up trade. Criticism of the monopoly and the lure of the Indian market's economic prosperity were strong motivators. The potential benefits were too significant to ignore, much like the Newfoundland and Labrador example showed. Let's explore the key provisions of the Charter Act of 1813. Abolition of monopoly on trade. The Act famously abolished the East India Company's monopoly on trade, except for the tea trade and commerce with China. This opened up India's doors to other British traders and marked a significant shift in economic policies. New governance framework. It extended the company's rule for another 20 years while asserting the sovereignty of the British Crown over British India. The Act also introduced a separation of revenues between commercial and territorial incomes, aiming for greater transparency and accountability in governance. Legalization of Christian missionary activities. For the first time, Christian missionaries were legally allowed free entry into India to propagate their religion. This provision marked the beginning of significant cultural and religious transformations. Funds for education and literature. The Act allocated 1 lakh rupees annually towards the improvement of education, the revival of Indian literature, and the promotion of sciences. This financial commitment was a clear indication of the changing priorities under British rule, though it also sparked the Anglicist-Orientalist controversy over the direction of educational reforms. The Charter Act of 1813 had a groundbreaking impact on education in India. Provision of 100,000 rupees annually. This financial commitment was aimed at the educational improvement, revival, and improvement of literature, encouragement of learned natives, and promotion of scientific knowledge. Emergence of English education. The allocation led to the spread of English education and the establishment of significant educational institutions, including Hindu College in Calcutta 1817, Presidency College in Madras 1810. Ideological conflict. The Act ignited an ideological conflict between Orientalists, who favored education in classical Indian languages and traditional subjects, and Anglicists, who pushed for education in English and modern subjects. This debate played a crucial role in shaping the educational policy in India, balancing cultural preservation with modernization. The Charter Act of 1813 was not just a regulatory adjustment, it was a catalyst for change, setting the stage for socio-economic transformations and cultural shifts in British India. Its provisions, particularly those concerning education, laid the foundation for a new educational landscape that would influence generations to come. Next up, we're going to dive into the social and religious repercussions brought about by the Charter Act of 1813. Entry of Christian missionaries. The Charter Act facilitated the entry of Christian missionaries into India, leading to an increase in Christian conversions. Interestingly, many of these efforts were focused on marginalized sections of society, where missionaries found a more receptive audience. Educational institutions. Missionaries also played a key role in spreading Christianity through educational institutions. These institutions were not just centers of learning but also played a pivotal role in religious conversion, intertwining education with religious teachings. Impact on the socio-religious landscape. The Act created a complex interplay between colonial policies, missionary activities, and traditional Indian religions. This period saw debates and dialogues among Indian religious communities, leading to efforts to reform and revive traditional practices. The socio-religious reform movements aimed to modernize and reform practices while also mounting a cultural and religious defense against colonial influence. Now we are going to see how the Act brought about the economic and commercial changes in British India. A monumental change was the opening of trade to private British merchants, ending a 200-year monopoly. This created a more diverse and dynamic economic environment, increasing competition and transforming the commercial landscape. The end of the commercial monopoly had far-reaching effects, not just within India but also in global trade dynamics. The introduction of an open and competitive market marked a significant shift from the previous era of monopolized trade, impacting not only the economy of India but also the global economy. Next up, political reforms and governance. Strengthening of British Crown sovereignty. The Act marked a significant shift towards direct governance by the British Crown, moving away from the company's rule to a more centralized Crown control. This assertion of sovereignty was a clear signal of the changing dynamics of power in British India. Delete. Expansion of Board of Control powers. It significantly enhanced the British government's oversight over civil, military, and revenue affairs in India. This expansion blurred the lines between commercial interests and imperial governance, reshaping the administrative framework and strategies of governance in India. Legacy and criticism. Long-term effects on British colonial rule. Gradual erosion of companies' privileges. The Charter Act of 1813 set in motion a gradual erosion of the East India Company's privileges, paving the way for increased Crown involvement. Establishment of British educational institutions. It led to the spread of Western knowledge and the English language through the establishment of various educational institutions, which had lasting impacts on Indian society and culture. Assertion of Crown sovereignty. The transition to direct Crown rule marked a new era in the governance of British India, centralizing control and altering the political landscape. Criticisms of the Act. Decline of traditional Indian industries. One of the major criticisms of the Act relates to the deindustrialization and economic hardship for Indian craftsmen, as it significantly impacted traditional industries. Promotes interests of British traders. The opening of trade benefited British traders at the expense of the Indian economy, leading to a decline in local commercial activities. Legalization of missionary activities. The Act's allowance for Christian missionary activities is criticized for cultural and religious interference, causing social divisions and undermining indigenous faiths. Wrapping up, the Charter Act of 1813 was a watershed in the history of British India, laying the groundwork for profound political, social, and economic changes. While it brought about significant reforms and governance strategies that shaped the administrative framework of India, it also left a complex legacy marked by criticism and debate. Its impact on the decline of traditional industries, promotion of British economic interests at the cost of the Indian economy, and the cultural and religious ramifications of legalized missionary activities are subjects of ongoing discussion and analysis. These aspects underscore the multifaceted influence of the Act on the fabric of Indian society and its legacy in shaping the contours of colonial and post-colonial India. Thank you for joining us on this insightful journey through the Charter Act of 1813. If you found this exploration engaging, don't forget to hit like, share this video, and subscribe to IAS Express for more enriching content. Visit iasexpress.net to read interactive mind map notes of general studies, current affairs as well as optional subjects. Your curiosity fuels our passion for sharing knowledge. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep learning.